Chayei Soda Aleph is a very Gishmak farbrengen, and it's a very Gishmak Sikha. It's based on two farbrengens, Tafshin Lamed Hey and Tafshin Lamed Vav. And I want to share some interesting nuggets from both the farbrengens. We'll start with Tafshin Lamed Hey, that Rebbe starts off the farbrengen asking the question, or rather saying that we spoke that the names of the Seder have to have incredible meaning, and it's Minik Yisrael and it's Toivas Yisrael. So therefore, we look at this parsha and we have the issue that the Rebbe brings in the Sikha. So the Rebbe says, I already explored this in other farbrengens, but we're just going to say the point. Chayei Tzadik are not Chayei Psolim, but Chayei Ruchni. Emuna Yidanava, which is interesting. I'm recording this on the day of Perek Chav Zayin Tanya Chitas. And that's the point of Chayei Soda. Chayim Hadauyim Yasada. Chayim that's befitting Soda, which is Chayim Ruchni. And says the pasuk at the beginning that by you Chayei Soda, Shnei Chayei Soda, that everything was good. Kol Shnei Seh Shabbos L'Teva. And when did you find it out? Dafke by the passing. And then the Rebbe goes into the stuff that we explored in the Sikha. And the Rebbe says, interesting point. I've always heard this as a Geshmaka story. I never saw it in the Rebbe's family. The Rebbe's talking about that when a Yid does a davar toiv, a mitzvah, so then it's nitzchi. Not only l'mayla, but also l'mata. As the Rebbe said in our Sikha, that it has to be dafka l'mata. But it's only that the person who's a Baal Bechira has the Bechira how to behave, whether he's going to go on a higher level or a lower level, Chas v'Shalom, but the thing that he did will always stay there because Kedush is a Nitzchi. Says the Rebbe, and I remember, I'll share the story I heard, but the Rebbe says this is also a beer that it speaks about extensively in Sifrei Musar, that when somebody has a doubt whether something's a good thing or not, whether you should do it or not, so the test is, you should imagine how are you going to feel after you do it. If you're happy that you did it, so that was a good thing. Because when a Yid does a good thing, is it sufrid. But if you're not going to be happy and you're going to regret it, so simon, that's not a good thing. Because when a Yid does something unbefitting, it's literally Yitzhak Yanseh. The Yitzhak Hara, pushes him in that direction. But after that, Chab Tzicharain is given kapoyer. He realizes the whole thing was useless and wasteless. It was just for a moment that he fell into the trap of the Yetzer Hara, but the end is bitter. And what does the Rebbe learn from here? That a good thing is forever, nitzchi, but a double-bilti, let's say something not good, is something that will not last. And that's the idea of Chayei Soda. Interesting, I remember that we stole Gordon when we arrived in Morristown. I think I shared this in the previous shir a long time ago. He told us a Maisa about the Chevman who his father tells him he has to go to mikveh in Russia for his bar mitzvah, and it's freezing ice cold, and the kid says, "No way, not happening." And the father says, "Oh yes, it is happening." And the father kind of addresses him and pushes him, and it gives a shrai. Ay! The father takes him out, wraps him in a towel, and it says, "Ah." So the Bisol told us the father turned to the boy and said, remember this principle forever, similar to what the Sikha says. If the I comes and then the you did something good. Because rarely a mitzvah is that exciting when you're doing it. But after that, you feel like $1 million. But if comes first, then and then what was I thinking? You did something wrong. So it was just interesting, like that. The Rebbe quotes from the Sifrei Musar about that each and every one of us should be thinking that question. And the Rebbe continues in the whole idea of the Goyim knowing their role. Then in Tafshin Lamed Vav, the Rebbe says like this. He's talking about Yishmael doing tshuva. Yishmael did tshuva seemingly because Hashem promised to Avram that Yishmael would do tshuva. So where's his free choice? And the answer is that because he was a son of Avram, it bothered him. It didn't get ekbert. It really drove him crazy, and he couldn't rest. And therefore, he had, even though he was a pet Adam, he had to do tshuva. And we say that we see at the end, that as long as Avram was living, he was he was yishken, he was resting, but when Vayomas Avdam, nafal. Even though he still had his brother and everything after Avdam passed away, but that was an Indian for nafal mitzad nisus Avdam. Says never, but still, even though mitzad Avdam, it should be like that they should do tshuva, but he's also been hagar mitzvahs. Especially that we know that Hagar, when Avram chased her away, she went back to Avodah Zarah. So he should be pulled by Avram in one direction, Hagar in the second direction. Says the Rebbe, but this question is only before we come to Parshas Chayei. Because at the Parshas Chayei we say Yishmael ben Avram Asher Yolda Hagar HaMitzvah Shivcha Sarah. By beginning, she's Hagar HaMitzvah, Bas Parah. And now she is Shivcha Sarah. In other words, she finally digested who she is. And when the Sibba was hat gebracht Yishmael, and what actually caused Yishmael to do tshuva, it was through Sarah, says the Rebbe. Because Sarah told Avram to chase him away, she didn't want Yishmael should have an influence on Yitzchak, because he was fighting with Yitzchak, as it says in the Rashi in our Parsha, and that was against Avram's will, because Avram's midas chesed. And it was also the Hipach HaTeva of Sarah Lane. The Rebbe says it wasn't Sarah's character as well. Sarah was midas chesed. Shloisha Anashim, at the beginning of the Parsha, she gives them better food than Avram even asked. So why should she chase them away? Especially that's the Hipach of Avtzon of Avram and Ishak Sheda Esed the same Bala. Because when it comes to chinuch, from the Yiddish kin, she didn't talk about it. She didn't care about her feelings and her nature, which she's already 90 years in Murgel. She already has this nature for 90 years. Or the Rebbe says 90 plus, because obviously Yitzchak was already grown up, it's 94, 95, that Yishmael was able to fight with him. Because it's a chinuch of a Yiddish kind, Yitzchak should not be with Yishmael. So she didn't care about her teva and her midas, even midas tevis dekdusha, gadesh amazos. And that chasing away caused Yishmael to tshuva. Why? Like the pasuk says in Mishlei, if you hold back your rod, you hate your son. In other words, if you didn't chase away Yishmael beis Avdam when he was misbehaving mitzachek, and we would have let him do this, but let him do this in beis Avdam, so what would cause him to change his ways? His father never made him sad in his life. Dafka chasing him out showed him that his anag is not the way it should be. So even though he was a wild boy, Peda Adam, it was poiled that his osef shuvatan and his shuva should be b'shleimus. And then he was makdim him by the funeral. And then the Rebbe goes into what he spoke about the end, Madas Machpelah. But the Rebbe says something fascinating. In the Sikha, in the edited Sikha that we learned, the Sikhas, the Rebbe is talking about shtamen, that today's Arabs, shtamen kimefursim nish from Yishmael. A majority of them don't come from Yishmael. The Rebbe quotes Even Ezra. But over here, when the Rebbe actually said the farbrengens, the Rebbe said like this: the emes is up there. The truth is that they have no relationship to Madas Machpelah because they don't even come from Yishmael. The Rebbe says like this: Gans Mitzrayim, the whole Egypt, half Syria, half of Syria. 3/4 from Lebanon, 3/4 of Lebanon, and half Yarden, and half of the Jordan, are Bechlal not descendants of Ishmael. They came from Kol Minei Yumas, all different nations. Africa, Rusland, Russia, Armenia. So interesting. Did you know that the countries around Israel are not even real Arabs? They're Russians, Armenians, and Africans. I believe that includes Iran and other countries as well. Not a kleiner Teil von sein and fun Yishmael. And even Yishmael himself doesn't have any relationship to them. I just thought it was quite interesting. That was literally going into geography and telling us where everybody comes from.